first, that was kind of not a shock to the system for my Steelers against the Baltimore Ravens in a game that Baltimore won 34-17. A little bit of a misleading score, just in the sense that this sucker was close throughout, and the Baltimore kind of pulled away, really, with the pick six by Marlon Humphrey early in the fourth quarter on from that. But these two teams are so similar in so many different ways. And that goes without saying. The Steelers-Ravens rivalry, which I heard Chris Canty on ESPN say recently, shout out Chris Canty, but I heard him say, oh, it's not a rivalry because the Steelers beat him a lot lately. Dude, it's a rivalry. They hate each other passionately. And these coaches, Tomlin, Harbaugh, know each other better than literally every coach in NFL history knows each other outside of Curly Lambeau and George Halas. Okay, so this is an all-time rivalry. Very similar. Now that the Ravens defense is all of a sudden back, both teams have great defenses. Both teams have excellent wide receiving core. Certainly Pittsburgh is much better with George Pickens in the lineup. Both teams can run the football. Baltimore more than Pittsburgh because Derrick Henry is a monster. Both have excellent coaches. I'm going to go with Mike Tomlin all day, every day. Both special teams tend to be great. Maybe Justin Tucker's back on schedule. I'm not totally convinced of that. And we all know Chris Boswell's money. And the difference that game was Lamar Jackson and it was Russell Wilson. And this isn't even an indictment of Russ. The game wasn't. Because my mindset with the Russell Wilson signing was always, well, upgrade of what we've had for the last, 5 years. Old Big Ben and then a slew of backup quarterbacks. I mean, you saw Mason Rudolph, God bless him, tried his hardest for the Titans yesterday. Kenny Pickett, okay. That's kind of what he is at his best days. Okay, Russell's an upgrade. But if you ask Russell at this stage in his career, 36 years old, year 13, play from behind, that's just not who he is at this stage. And I've said all season long about my Steelers that the highest they've gotten, you'll see Bryce's best 10 later. Spoiler, they're on it. Certainly not as high as they've been. They've been as high as fourth because the defense was rolling, all this, all that. They've beaten a bunch of playoff teams, Denver and the Chargers and Washington, a lot of playoff teams. Is that when you face an Eagles team, listen, Philly's got a better roster. Philly had Jalen Hurts healthy. Eagles are favored. Okay. Baltimore's a different story. You've owned the Ravens. You've been very successful against the Ravens. Okay. Lamar Jackson's played some of his worst football of his career against the Steelers as he has in the playoffs and against Kansas City. We've shown that stat over and over and over on the show. But when it came down to the quarterbacks, which, by the way, if we can, it got the numbers on my phone here, both teams ran the ball exceptionally well. The Steelers average about 5 yards carry. Ravens average about 6, if you round up on both. So both teams ran the football effectively. Derrick Henry was awesome. The Steelers could not stop him whatsoever throughout the course of that game, particularly early on. But it's Lamar Jackson. Passer rating 115. 3 touchdowns. Had the one awful interception, which then got immediately canceled out by the Russell Wilson. Even worse, pick 6 to Marlon Humphrey. Is that Pittsburgh, I think, can win multiple playoff games. I still maintain that. That offense is significantly better with George Pickens of the lineup, which, for my hesitancy with Pittsburgh facing the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas in front of the whole country to watch, don't feel great about that as a Steelers fan, but looks like Pickens, according to reports, could be back for that game. That's obviously a shot in the arm. That's a huge boost for this Pittsburgh Steelers football team. But ultimately, what it comes down to is this. If the defense shows up and shows out, and as much as I love TJ Watt, and I still maintain that is the baddest dude on defense in the National Football League, that's the guy. TJ Watt, best defensive player in football, should win DPOY this season. Draws more attention than any player at his position in football by a long shot. He's been pretty quiet the last couple of games. Now, again, mobile quarterback Jalen Hurts, mobile quarterback Lamar Jackson. Mahomes is mobile, not quite as mobile as those guys. And then you have Joe Burrow in Week 18 who can move, but he's no Lamar Jackson with his legs, certainly. Make an impact against those quarterbacks? Sure. But if you ask Russell Wilson to play from behind, down 10, did his best. Matter of fact, Pittsburgh ended up coming back from down 17 to 7 to tie the football game. Then Baltimore scored. Then you got the stop. Russell throws the pick 6. Now it's game over. Is that the Steelers are one of the best rosters. I've said this for the last year and a half. I think they're one of the 5 best rosters in professional football. Could they use could they use another wide receiver? Sure. But Calvin Austin's a good speed guy. George Pickens, when he's not fighting literally everything that breathes, is a very productive wide receiver. Freiermuth, the tight end. You got 2 really, really good running backs. O-line's actually been pretty good over the last few games, at least better than usual. Arthur Smith's doing his thing. You can't blame Mike Tomlin for this. I'm seeing a lot of Steelers fans up. Here we go again. The Steelers winning 10 games, sneaking into the playoffs, blowing the division, and Tomlin's going to come back. Guys, Tomlin didn't fumble inside the 10, trying to score a touchdown, trying to do too much when you had a nice gain already. Russell, you're a baseball player, former baseball player. Just slide down there, then let Najee Harris or Warren or Freiermuth or somebody punch it in. And then the pick six was nothing short of an atrocious decision on the part of Russ. These two rosters, these two teams are very, very similar. Heck, the cultures are similar. Defense, toughness, run the football. We're going to outlast you. That's who the Steelers and Ravens have been for 25 years. The Steelers even longer than that because they're a much older franchise. But that was the difference. And this is, listen, I go back to an old saying, an old trope that I've said on the show for 3 years. The running game has gotten more important over the last year or so. The value of the running back has certainly increased. Ask the Ravens, ask the Eagles, ask the Packers, a bunch of teams. It is still, and barring something unforeseen, will forever be a quarterback's league. The Steelers have done everything right. Everything. Coach, roster, all of it. Heck, they finally got a good OC in Arthur Smith. But for as good as Russell is within a system at this stage in his career, that's not going to be a guy who's going to lead you from down double digits to get to Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, etc. That's just not who he is. And so I think for Pittsburgh, listen, the mindset moving forward, let's win this division. The good news is for the Steelers, it's not all doom and gloom. George Pickens is back. You still control your fate, even despite losing the game. The Steelers control their own fate to win the AFC North. The problem is the next two quarterbacks they face, Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, maybe the two best. So I think it is going to be tough for Pittsburgh to win the North. The good news is they're in the playoffs, finish the season strong. I think it really, really helped Mike Tomlin if you could finally win a playoff game this year, which you haven't done since 2016. At that point, then I feel like you almost have to bring Russ back next year because the quarterback draft is very weak in 2025. Draft a guy in 26. So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of a game where I'm like, okay, Lamar's doing his thing. He doesn't usually do it against the Steelers, but in general, Lamar is a playmaker. We know this. 40 touchdowns, 4 picks would tell you that. And it's like, okay, I'm waiting for that play from Russ. I'm waiting. He made a couple nice throws. There was a good deep ball to Calvin Austin at one point in this game. And I'm like, I'm waiting for Russell to, and he's just not that guy anymore. At least without George Pickens, he's not. And the fact of the matter is George Pickens, for as talented as I have lauded him to be, is one of the most unreliable, emotional guys in the National Football League. There's no question about it. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.